you feeling stuck, lost, tired, or uninspired? We've all been there, including myself. I'm Coach Des, mindset motivator and lifestyle entrepreneur. I'm here to tell you that the best, unapologetic, and limitless version of yourself is yet to come. The Born Unbreakable podcast is here to inspire just that. With motivating guests from all different walks of life and around the world, their stories will empower you to unlock abundance and your unbreakable spirit. Do you need accountability? Reach out to me for a free consultation of how I can support you in reaching your maximum potential. This episode is brought to you by Korma Date Coffee, the healthy alternative to coffee. This delicious date coffee has the health benefits of giving you natural energy, antioxidants, vitamins, minerals, and fiber. Best of all, Korma is caffeine-free, no jitters, no anxiety, and no afternoon crash. Go to kormacafe.com, that's KORMACAFE.com, and enter discount code BORNUNBREAKABLE at checkout to get 10% off your order. Welcome to the Born Unbreakable podcast. It's February. I'm blown away because this year, this 2022 it's going by fast. It's a good thing, though. I do think it's a good thing. It means my word for the year, which I've talked about on previous episodes, is momentum. So I certainly feel like I'm leaning in to that word. Hopefully for all of you that are joining this awesome conversation today, feel like you're leaning into your words of intention and your wishes for the year. But I'm really excited about my guest today. This is one of the biggest things that I've been looking forward to this week, in the midst of all the busyness and my team losing. I have to just call that out if there's any 49ers fans that watched, the championship situation. And yeah, but the teams that are meant to go to the Super Bowl, the Rams and the Bengals, are going, and they sure do deserve it. So
yeah, my husband, by the way, is a 49ers fan.
I mean, that's why this is even a better conversation. You know what I mean? But yeah, football is one of those things that can be highly emotional, especially in America.
It's crazy. You guys are crazy over here. I mean,
It really is crazy. We are, your whole mood and your whole day or week can be influenced by what a football team does here. So it's pretty spectacular, but it is an event to look forward to. So I'm sure everybody is excited about that. And even if you don't really care about the teams, it's always a good excuse to get together, have a party, have a good time, and hopefully see some commercials that are worthwhile because they cost like $1 million or 2 million or 5 million or whatever $1 million. So they better be pretty good. But needless to say, I have Deirdre Tshien with me today, and she is a rock star in so many ways. She's the founder and CEO of Capsho, which is a software company that helps entrepreneurs turn their stories into a bank of captions and emails. On top of being a CEO of a company, she's also the creator of Viralocity Marketing. She's the author of The Traffic Formula and host of the Remarkable Entrepreneur and Remarkable Entrepreneurs Playbook podcast. So that is absolutely something that you have to check out. And she's a serial entrepreneur. She knows what it's like to start businesses, end businesses, grow businesses. So if you're here today, whether you are a small business person, a big business person, or have even thought about a side hustle, because that's a lot of the ways that we start businesses today, especially over the course of the last 2 years. We've seen during the pandemic an incredible amount of creativity emerge. Deirdre has so much to share in this space and a lot of hands-on experience. So I'm really grateful for your time of being here. And I also have to say, Deirdre hails from Australia, but resides in New York. So if you happen to be watching this episode, you'll notice that there is snow behind her.
Yes.
So welcome.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Thanks for having me. You are so much fun. I'm already having fun, and we've just started. And I was going to say, I think that the part of the move to New York City was just so that my husband could actually watch football every single week.
See? See how important it is?
Yeah, it's crazy.
Now, when did you move from Australia to New York?
So we have been here now for 2.5 years.
Okay.
So pretty much just before the pandemic hit, which was great timing.
I was gonna say, it's good
Yeah.
to beat that situation. Although it's funny because I was telling Deirdre that I have a little bit of an obsession with koalas.
A bit
So
strange.
I no, it's a little strange. You know, they're cute. They're, you know, I just want to hug one. I don't know if they actually like doing that. They probably don't like doing
They
that,
don't.
but
Yeah, they're
every
actually
time
pretty dangerous.
I think they like their independence. But in my world, they would want to hug me back. And so I do have a goal of going there, and I would
Mm,
actually like to adopt one. So
yes. Amazing. You must go.
amazing.
Yes.
Oh, but you obviously have this incredible entrepreneurial story. But before Deirdre, the entrepreneur,
Mm.
there was Deirdre, growing up and having dreams. So if you could just take us back, tell us about your life, growing up in Australia, and then what led you into the world of entrepreneurship.
Yeah, for sure. It's funny because you say, before there was Deidre, the entrepreneur, my mind was already being like, there was Deidre, the overachiever, that was kind of, my life in a way. So we do come from Sydney. I grew up in Sydney, moved over there from Malaysia. So my parents actually originally from Malaysia, and moved over when I was a baby. And just like a lot of first migrant families and parents, they did that so that they could give my brother and I better education, better opportunities, better life, all of that. And so we definitely grew up in, and I don't think they meant to do it, but you kind of feel this guilt of like, they kind of upended their lives for us in a way, so that, and we had to kind of almost, make something of it. So for me, that meant that I was tutored from a very early age. I think basically from third grade, I got, private tutoring. I played the piano pretty much all my life, although until I was able to negotiate being able to give up the piano, like I played all of my life. Now, seriously, I would not be able to read any music. I wouldn't even know how. Like it's crazy. I was like at the first chance that I could stop it, I did. And so that was kind of, yeah, like I did all of the tests. I went to the top selective school that they have in Sydney. I did a law degree. Now that is a little bit of a blip in my record because my parents actually wanted me to do medicine, and I ended up doing a law degree instead, which
Yeah, yeah, those are not
yeah,
adjacent at all.
they
Although
were
you
they
could
were they were
do,
not as
you
impressive.
could be an attorney for medical malpractice or something like that.
No, they wanted to be able to say they have a doctor in their family, and I yeah, just destroyed their dreams. No, but yeah, so I to be honest, I didn't know what it is I wanted to do. For a long time in high school, I did think that I was going to go down that path of becoming a doctor and doing that. But once we had to put our preferences in for what subject to take in university, I was like, I couldn't do it. There was something in me that was like, I'm going to hate it. So I immediately in that moment, I knew that I wanted to do something in business. I didn't know what. So I did a commerce degree, and I did a law degree, just in case. I don't know. Again,
Just
overachiever,
in case,
but just
did
because
a
I
law
could.
degree. Don't worry about that. I'm just gonna do that.
So that was kind of, my life growing up, and a lot of it, I think I mentioned sort of the guilt and the, that first migrant story of having to live up to certain expectations. And I've carried that with me a lot. And I still think that a lot of that does make its decisions for me, which isn't the best thing, by the way, to do. And so it is something that I have to battle every now and then. But I did go into corporate. I worked for the biggest investment bank in Australia. It's called Macquarie Bank. And, in, again, overachieving style, I was, promoted relatively quickly. I was really fortunate at a pretty early age to be in pretty senior rooms. I was leading a stream of work in one of the biggest projects across the bank that was happening. It was like a once in a decade kind of regulatory reform that was happening in the banking industry in Australia. And so, I was communicating with people, super senior people, all the way to the CEO, and, leading this stream of work. So I was really, really fortunate. But at the same time, what that sort of opened my eyes to, I guess, is the politics that happens. We hear about it. We hear about, oh, there's politics, and, but until you're in those rooms and you see it actually happening in front of your eyes, and then you leave those rooms and you hear the back channeling happening and all those like offline conversations that are happening, you don't really get the realness of it. And it was in that moment that I actually experienced the realness of it. And that was when I was like, I don't think I want to do this. Like, I don't think that I want to have to potentially become this person to climb the corporate ladder. So that was kind of an epiphany I had at that stage. But I still didn't know. Well, I had no skills as such to speak of, no real talents, no real creativity in the traditional sense of like, like just spin something up or just start making things. And I had none of that. And so I was kind of a little bit stuck. I didn't know what to do. At that same time, my now husband, then boyfriend, and I had just moved out, and we were kind of adulting because we had to. So we were having to like, oh, what's this thing we have to cook for ourselves now?
What? Cooking?
And it was funny because he was actually studying medicine and he was not enjoying it, but he did find this outlet of cooking and particularly baking. He was really loving baking. I love eating desserts, so it was a match made in heaven, literally.
I love it.
Um, and so he was perfecting all of these desserts, like all the things I love eating, and really, really enjoying it. And from there, we were like, you know what, maybe we can open a dessert bar. Like, totally random. We do not have a background in hospitality at all. None of that. We don't even know the first thing in terms of opening a physical brick and mortar store thing. But we're like, well, let's try it anyway.
Why
Why
not?
not? Exactly. And so that's how we actually got started in entrepreneurship. We opened our first store, it was back in 2013. It was a little store. It was kind of like concept, but we tried to, we were kind of looking at rent and things like that and trying to keep it relatively low, but still, you want to maximize every opportunity that you can get. Now, would I recommend hospitality or brick and mortar store as anyone's first business? Probably not. Like, we did not know what we're in for. It was like, you're in debt from like way before you even open the doors because the place has to be fitted out and it costs a lot of money to get builders and, equipment and all the things in there. And then you open your doors and from day one, from day zero, you're paying supplies, you're paying wages. Like, we were really not prepared for the enormity of it.
Mhm.
So that was our first foray into entrepreneurship. And we did, like, we had no idea what we were doing. And we did think that because we were so excited about it, that if we build it, that they will come. And I think a lot of
Mhm.
us fall into that trap, right? Of build it and they will come. And unfortunately, that strategy does not work. You cannot just build it and expect them to come. Because we
Mhm.
suffered. It was months and months and months of just like red, getting deeper in the red, deeper in the red, and to the point that I
Mm.
would actually feel claustrophobic being in the store sometimes because I was just like, I don't know how we're going to be able
Anxiety. Gave you
to.
anxiety.
Exactly.
What was the biggest thing that you learned at that time when you had that experience?
Oh gosh, I think the biggest. I mean, in if I think about, we'll answer that question. But in hindsight, kind of like one of the things. So I say tongue in cheek not to go into hospitality because you're on the hook for so many things. You're on the hook for debt, leases, like basically having to pay for things without potentially even having made any money. And now, would I
Mhm.
change that for my journey? Of course not, because that was my journey that I had to go on. And now, looking in hindsight, was like, because I was on the hook, it made me actually have to keep going. And that was, and to answer your question, like, what was my learning was that, like, I didn't have a choice. We didn't have a choice. We had to keep going because we had signed a 3-year lease. You can't just break leases. We had this debt. You can't just not pay debt. Like, unlike now where, starting up an online business, and as you said, with COVID hitting, I think there's like just been a lot of people, going into that space. With an online business, you can sort of kind of cheaply like spin something up, shut it down if, things aren't working, or we did not have that luxury. So in a way, I don't know whether in that moment we necessarily learnt anything specific, but it was more, we just knew it was almost like fight or flight, right? Like, it was coming
Mhm.
down to that core response, and we knew we had to fight in order to keep this thing going. So that was, yeah, and we did, right? And from that journey, we definitely learned a whole host of things, about how we actually have to market ourselves, like we have to actually promote ourselves, because I think a lot of times we feel so passionate about a thing, and so passionate about an idea, that we forget about the hard part, which is how do you actually get your
People have to know
there.
about us
Yes,
to buy
exactly.
our dessert.
Exactly. Totally forgot about that. So that was then, that whole journey, of us going on that was, yeah, our next path. So yeah.
Wow. Wow. So you mentioned starting it in 2013. So what happened with the business?
Yeah, so we actually got over we managed to get the word out there. We did grow it, and we actually grew it to the point where we had 5 stores, 5 of those locations, 5 locations of the chalk pot of the brand. So yeah, so how did we make it happen? I don't. Sometimes I'm like, yeah, okay, so we were fortunate as well, and I know I keep saying that I feel fortunate, and I genuinely do, and I feel really grateful for some things that, have happened along the way. But one of those things was that back then, 2013, we're talking about like 9 years ago. That was also when Instagram was kind of growing, and starting to take off. So we were fortunate because we were able to ride that wave. I had no idea what I was doing. We had a staff member just be like, all of my, like, she's a little bit younger than us. She was like, we're all on Instagram. You have to be on this thing. And so she just started it. I was like, I don't know. I've never seen this thing before.
It was like
Uh,
the TikTok of
yeah,
the
yeah,
mid 20, 2000s,
yeah, exactly,
early
exactly.
2000s. Yeah.
So yeah, so we got on Instagram, and then we started leveraging other people's audiences. So we started off with bloggers, because that was, at the time, that was the big, blogging was the big thing,
Mhm.
the big influence. If you were an influencer, you were a blogger. And so we were inviting bloggers in, and then they'd come, once or twice a week, as in we would have one or two a week. And it's not like a strategy like leveraging people's audiences is going to like immediately get you known, but it's the momentum. Like, the more that you have, and the more that because people follow like people, right? So we were inviting foodies in, and so all of these their audiences were being like, oh, like, this person's talking about them, and this person, like, I have to go try this place out. And then the more these bloggers that were coming in, the more that they were saying, oh, by the way, like, we're also going to post about you on Instagram, on this thing called Instagram. We're like, oh, yeah, well, I know about Instagram.
Sure. Sounds good to
Yeah,
me.
exactly. And so more and more we could see that transition, that shift, going from bloggers, food bloggers, to actually food influencers on Instagram. And so we kind of like started going all in on that strategy, like who were back then, the influencers, who, like, food influencers, especially in Sydney, that we could reach out to, and have them come in and help spread the word. That, like, that grew us. That really helped us explode. We were also doing a lot of things, apart from that, where we were running like contests, and we were doing a lot of other things to create virality in our brand and what we were offering, to the point where, yeah, like, we were just getting pinged on social media. Like, we were constantly getting, like, people were putting up photos of us. We were getting review after review, and it was great. Like, it was, that moment, like, it's like that moment, that shift where you're like, it just feels like you're like trudging through mud all this time trying to gain this traction, and suddenly you hit this
Mm.
point and it kind of almost seems easy. Like
Yeah.
that's kind of, and I think a lot of entrepreneurs when they're growing their business feel they understand that, because there's that moment when it's like, wow, now people are coming to us and they're asking us to collaborate with them, or they're asking us to, like, that's the beauty, I think, of
Totally.
just keep going.
Yeah. There's a pivot that occurred.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so then you have 5 stores.
So we grew it to 5 stores. Now, along the way, we have had many failures. We have had to close a couple, because honestly, like, a mix of being ego driven, bad decision making, being young and naive, like, just landed us in some pretty bad deals that we had
Mhm.
to extract ourselves out of. And so those were really, really stressful times as well. But yeah, we had grown it to 5 locations and closed a couple. And now being over here, we're aiming to sell the business this year, but essentially as a couple of leases have ended, we've also just ended, like, closed stores as well.
Wow.
Yeah.
What a journey. But
It's
but and
yeah.
and I appreciate the candor, because there's every emotion attached to it. There's excitement to do something new. There's the scariness because things are difficult. And then there's the perseverance because you actually, when the pressure's on, are able to get to the other side and actually grow a business. So now fast forward and Capsho. So what is the story behind your current business?
Wow. Yes. Okay. So, um, the whole story does still stem back to the chatbot. So let me take you, kind of fast-ish forward from that point to now, because when we were building the chatbot, we also actually started a burger restaurant alongside it. So Stacks on Burgers, and we have 2 of those locations still running in Sydney as well. And then what happened was literally, gosh, three and a half, 4 years ago now, we found out that one of our store managers of our our busiest store, it was located in the city. We found out that he had been stealing from us, and he'd been stealing, like, we're talking about like hundreds of thousands of dollars. It was ridiculous. Yeah. um, yeah. Talk about
Sounds
having
like
a
a
night.
Netflix movie.
Oh, it
A
was
heist.
crazy. Yeah. Yeah.
The
But like,
Australian heist.
yeah, yeah, exactly. Um, so yeah, and at that time, it's a big shock to the system when something happens like that, because I think any betrayal of trust, whether it's in a romantic relationship or in a family or something like this, is a big deal, and it kind of does something to your perspective. And in that moment when we had found out, we it kind of made us question a lot of things, and specifically if the path that we were on was what we wanted to be on and where we saw our future.
Yeah.
And so Ash and I, my husband and I, had to have a really honest conversation about it, because, and I mean, the good thing is that we were both really aligned that while we loved it, we weren't in love with what we were doing.
Mhm.
And at the same time, I had actually been exploring a fashion technology idea with another co-founder, so someone I had met in corporate, Bonner. And when we made the decision to move, because it was kind of one of those effort where let's just do this, because I've always wanted to live and work overseas.
Mhm.
And I remember having a chat to her and being like, I know that we're working on this thing, but I'm sure we can make it work. Like, you can do the Southern Hemisphere hours, I'll do Northern Hemisphere, and it's like, we'll make it work. But I think the
Teamwork
more,
makes the dream work,
yeah,
right?
exactly, exactly. Or the more that we spoke about it, the more, and then it came to this point where I was just like, you know what? Do you just want to come? Like, do you want to just come to New York too? And she was like, no, okay. so, so I actually came to New York with my husband, my cat, and my co-founder in tow. So we kind of hit the ground running, because honestly, what better place than New York for the intersection of technology and fashion, right? And we're like, it's a no-brainer. So we hit the ground running with this idea. So our hypothesis was that our customers were going to be either college students or young professionals. And so we went to Columbia campus and NYU and Wall Street and just like randomly spoke to women who were super generous with their time when these random Aussies were coming up to them, wanting to have a chat.
So you walked on, like, to a Columbia campus. You would physically walk up to somebody, they're sitting there having their coffee with their book open, and you just started a conversation.
Yeah, yeah. It's crazy because, by the way, I'm a massive introvert. So I hated doing any of that. I'm like, I'm like, I am not. So luckily for me, my co-founder Bonner, she's more of an extrovert. So I just kind of like push her to do because it's always the initial thing. It's always the initial that moment that I really really struggle doing. But once the conversation's going, I'm super comfortable then. But yeah,
Mhm.
so that, as you said, teamwork makes the dream work, and that was, there you go, Bonner, go say hi
Yeah,
to this person.
let her break the ice,
Yeah,
make it comfortable, and then you could,
yeah,
join in.
exactly. So we were doing that, and and at the same time, we were kind of like working on the back end, the actual algorithm, like the brain of it. And what we realized, so we actually ended up failing that business, that idea, because in talking to these women, it was a problem that we were solving for, a problem that was real, but the way that they were solving for it already was good enough, and we just didn't have the runway to be able to keep something going that would need to break a habit where it wasn't really compelling enough for them to break, if that makes sense.
Mhm.
So we actually decided to fail that idea, which meant that we kind of fell into the next thing. So at the same time that we were talking to these women, we were also talking to brands, because it was a two-sided marketplace.
Mhm.
And whenever we spoke to these brands, the one thing, and we always was like, what's your biggest problem? The one thing that they would say time and time again was acquisition, like acquiring. And we know this, right? As entrepreneurs, it's like that's always such a big, even when I back to the chatbot days, that was the problem we came up because, like, how do we get the word out there? How do we actually get people in? And so what we actually did, we ended up falling into helping these brands acquire customers. So we did a bit of agency work, a mix of ads, social media, and this thing that we were calling live conversion methods. So actually going live as a boutique to an audience. So that's kind of what we were helping them with. And then from there, we sort of fell into coaching, because we didn't really want to scale an agency business, and that's really hard to scale. And we kind of wanted to work with entrepreneurs at the grassroots level, like kind of help them build their own businesses. So we actually started coaching other e-commerce businesses to grow their business. And through that journey, in speaking to our clients, and even what we were struggling with was all the time, it was like, I know how important it is to be on social media. For us, things had changed, right? Like from almost 10 years ago now, like with the Chalkpot, as I said, we were fortunate because we were able to ride the Instagram wave. Like as they grew, we grew. We don't have
Yeah.
that luxury anymore. I mean, yes, there's TikTok, and that's great, and definitely, is definitely a channel worth exploring to anyone listening to this. But for those who know that, for example, Instagram, Facebook is where their customers and clients are,
Mhm.
it was hard. It was still hard reaching them on a platform like that.
Mhm.
And so,
Yeah.
and it was also hard creating content after content and feeling like you were this voiceless, and like you'd say something and it would just like fall into this pit, this abyss of like,
The
no one
black
would.
hole.
Exactly. And you hear the echo coming back at you. Because
Yeah.
it was just, yeah. So that's what we were like, we know that we can help solve that problem. We know that we can help essentially help entrepreneurs take the crappiness out of content creation. And so that's when Capsho came about. That was when it was born.
That is incredible. And I can only imagine anybody listening thinking that they're facing this problem right now because, again, and I'm sure if we sat here and studied the statistics of the number of small businesses that emerged, especially online in recent times, how much that would be. And marketing, reaching your target audience is
Yes.
something everybody is trying to do creatively every day.
Yeah.
So, what one or two strategies can you talk about that helps people like that?
Yeah. So I think the first thing is all about storytelling. And I think that's why I love speaking to you, because you know the power of storytelling. We were having a quick chat about this before, where that's essentially how people connect. That's how we connect with each other, is through our stories. But for some reason, when we create content or we write our captions or like that, just because it's hard to do as well. I totally get it. And we just forget that that's actually how we should be communicating with our audience, is through our stories. Or we might know it intellectually, but then putting it into practice is difficult. It's like, well, how do I structure a story, and how do I do it in a short form content for something like an Instagram that is actually going to
As our attention spans have diminished to, 5 seconds at a time.
yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
Because that's isn't that the way it is, right? If and we all do this and we all know this.
Yeah.
We have smartphones, we're scrolling through Facebook or Instagram, and your attention span, right? So even when you do a story, there's 15 seconds
Yeah.
that you have to get across something that's captivating, interesting, that's going to make somebody want to click whatever it is, whether it's a business, a service, a product, whether you're retail or you're a coach.
Yeah.
And then if it's your curated content, like on a timeline that's static,
Mm.
it's still the same thing. If it's a moving thing, if it's when it's past 15 or 30 seconds, people might have stopped
Yes.
watching
Yeah.
already,
Totally.
right? So
Yeah.
isn't it this instant gratification world that we're in where if you don't get your point across really fast, you've missed an opportunity?
Yeah. And that's where, and that's where the hook comes in, right? Like, the hook is where you need to capture people's attention. If you have a really great hook, whether that's a graphic or whether that's even the first line of whatever you're writing, that's going to want to compel people to actually stick around a little longer. And when you have something compelling that they stick around for, like you telling your story, like you being real and authentic and open and vulnerable, like you sharing how you were able to come to some kind of realization, or you were able to do something that they want to do as well, they want to be able to do, that's when you get engagement. That's when you get followers. That's when you get a raving tribe. Like, that's really, and it comes down
Mhm.
to that connection. Because if you don't build that connection, why is anyone really going to care or stick around long enough to actually want to keep following you? So that's why I'm a huge advocate for telling your stories in whatever format, medium that is. You want to try to be telling your
Mhm.
stories as much as possible.
That's huge.
Yeah.
Storytelling, it connects us, it's what I think has held a lot of us up in this time is just, knowing that you're in good company, knowing you're in community,
Yeah,
feeling
knowing that you're
like
not
there's
alone.
people there that
Yeah,
right?
exactly,
That's
exactly.
the
And
biggest thing.
my personal approach, because I know that, it's we all battle, a lot of us battle this imposter syndrome thing,
Oh,
thing, Nicole,
my
right?
gosh.
Like, I know for me, I'm
That's a
like, why
real
would
thing.
it is, yeah. And I know personally, I'm like, why would anyone want to listen to what I have to say? Like, who am I to, you know, I'm not an expert. I don't have these amazing superpowers or skills to talk of. So I battled with that a lot. And what I've come to realize is that actually, when I can be open and authentic about the journey that I'm on. So not even to say, hey, I have it all figured out, because by the way, I don't. All of my clients, my community, they know this, or they should know this by now, because I'm very, very real about the fact that I have a lot of it not figured out. But hey, like, if you're interested in following me on this journey because you're on this journey too, then we can figure it out together. And so that's how my approach to it is. Like, this imposter syndrome thing that I've always battled with is because I think ultimately it was really misaligned with my message and how I could help or impact people.
Yeah.
And so once I got to that realization, it just made it so much easier for me to share and keep
Yeah.
sharing.
I have to acknowledge that I meet so many people through my consulting work and my coaching work, and imposter syndrome time and time again comes up. And the thing about it, for anyone listening, is it can feel cyclical. And what I mean by that is we are always embarking on a new mountain.
Yeah.
After we've reached the peak of one, you are ready to climb the next one, right? And so in the journey to doing that, there's new obstacles, there's new learning that needs to happen. You don't know everything. You need to ask for help. You need to do your research. You have to have due diligence. And in that, it can feel daunting
Yes.
because that admittance of learning that you still need to do can make you feel and impact your confidence in how you're communicating with people. But what I want people to remember is you've done it before. You've been
Yes.
successful before. So you
Yes.
can do it again. It's the mindset that you carry with you to the next mountain,
Yeah. I love that.
you
Exactly.
know?
Yes. Because we're always breaking new ground
Mhm.
wherever we are in a journey. And so I think imposter syndrome is never going to go away. Feeling like you're not enough is probably never going to go away, unfortunately.
Mhm.
Um, and yeah, it is a daily thing. It's a daily thing that we need to battle to keep going and to be the best versions of ourselves and to show up for our team and for our business and for our clients and for our audience and everyone else. So yeah, it can be tough, but even the way that we're sharing like this now, like, this is because hopefully your listeners are listening to this and being like, yeah, that's how I feel too.
Mhm.
And that's, again, a connection has just been born there, right?
Mhm.
Like, that's the power of storytelling. That's the
Mhm.
power of actually authentically connecting with your audience. So that's, yeah, by far the biggest tip, I guess, I would give anyone is, like, how can you tap into that place that might feel really uncomfortable, by the way,
Mhm.
to actually, because that's how you can provide the best value for your
Yeah.
audience.
What have you seen is a good way for people to keep a pulse on what's actually happening out there and getting feedback, because there is a lot of competition. I think what one of the daunting things about business is that for every new business that comes up, there's 10 other ones that are similar. And
Mm,
so part of that challenge is feeling like, how do I differentiate myself? And I do want to put out myself out there and tell my story, but I also want to stay innovative, think
yeah,
ahead, understand that I am being proactive and wanting to, uh, you know, be ahead of the curve, you know.
yeah,
And one of the things I love, and the reason I thought of this question was because you talked about just the the tenacity that you had in the previous endeavor when you were walking up to people and
mm,
just flat out asking questions of getting their feedback,
yeah.
short of people's time, and maybe not everybody can, go and walk up to all kinds of people. How can people keep a pulse and get feedback so they know what to continue working on and how to grow?
Yeah, this is so I think there's kind of a dual thing that we need to stay on top of. So the first one, like the easiest thing, and I'm sure that everyone, everyone would have heard this, is like, you've got to speak to your audience. You've got to speak to your clients, especially if you do have clients, and sort of ask them what they want, like what problems are they solving, what problems do they have. I think the thing too, because it's very easy for us to go like, oh, okay, I have to ask them what they want, ask them what they want. But it's kind of like the whole Henry Ford thing, right? Which is like if you had asked people what they wanted, they'd said they want a horse, a faster horse, and instead of
Right.
like this thing called a car. And so so I think it's really important to ask the right questions. So it's not so much what do they want, but what are the problems that they are actually having? What are the day-to-day things that they're actually struggling with then and there? Because once you and rooted in the problem, because then you can let yourself kind of go a little bit, I'll say, wild, in terms of like let your imagination go loose. If you were going to solve for this problem, what are all of the different ways that you can solve for it? um, so I think that's the first thing, is like, yes, you have to root it into real life. Like, you want to make sure that you're actually solving a problem, but make sure you ask the right questions. Because, and it's not so much, I mean, it might be good to know what it is they want, but more so, what is the problem, the actual problem that you're solving for? I think is the first thing. And it's interesting, you talk about differentiation and stuff. And again, this goes back to my, about storytelling, is that the best way that we can actually differentiate ourselves in our marketing is because we are who we are. Like, there is only one of me, there's only one of you, which means that if you can share that, if you can share those stories, and in a way, because, and I have my perspectives, you have your perspectives, like, we are all different in that
Mhm.
way. And if you can bring that to life, that's what starts to differentiate you in your messaging and in your content and in how you communicate with your audience. Yeah, like your offer, or what it is that you sell at the end of the day, is it going to be super differentiated? Maybe not. That's okay. But the reason why that's okay is because you might sell the exact same thing as me, but my audience might not vibe with you. Same thing, your audience might not vibe with me. And that's
Mhm.
because we're who we are. And so
Right.
that's why I'm a big, big believer that the best differentiating tool that you have is actually yourself.
Yeah.
Um, and is who you are, your values, all of that. And then the offer will come. By the way, like, I am always, and so I talk about my own journey. I even now am still trying to work out, like, I kind of know what my offer is. I know at least what problem I'm solving for. In terms of how I do that, that's changing, that's evolving all the time. And so I
Mhm.
don't think any of us, like even big, known giants, like even like a Tony Robbins and stuff, have it figured out. They're constantly evolving, and you have to, as the world changes, as your audience changes, as innovation happens, like things like new technologies, like blockchain, NFTs, that's becoming a big, big thing.
Mhm.
Leveraging AI, like all of that from a technology perspective is becoming a big thing. And it's like, so yeah, you have to kind of like, as that develops, yeah, you're going to have to work out how does that actually impact or play a part in your business, and how can you
Mhm.
capitalize on those opportunities yourself. Um,
Yeah.
yeah. So
Oh
I
my
kind of
gosh.
went on a rant there.
No, that is that it makes so much sense. One of the other things that came to me, because there's people that have been listening to your story, and they've heard you say now that you started something. There was some of a downward aspect. Then you kept going, and you've had to close things. And so basically, there's been ups and downs.
Mhm.
Yet you do keep going, and
Yes.
you do try new things. What keeps you motivated? Why do
Oh
you
my God.
continue to pursue new things when you have experienced failure and you have experienced hardship?
That's, yeah, that's a really, really interesting question. I think I'd like to say it was something like, I don't know, I want to do good in this world and stuff. And like, a part of it is that, but if I'm going to be completely honest, totally egotistical, I think it's because for me personally, I feel like there's this unfulfilled potential in me. And that if I don't
Mhm.
keep going to try to actually fulfill that potential, like, I'll probably, we always talk about when we're on our deathbed, what are the things that we're going to regret and all of that. And I'm like, I think that's
Yeah.
going to be the biggest thing, right? Is like, that would be kind of like the internal death of me, is like, if I couldn't actually find a way to live my life in a way that I felt like I was fulfilling my potential. I
Yeah.
think at the core, that's probably what does keep me going, to be honest.
Yeah. And I love that, Because I think that somewhere in all of us, we know that we're made for more.
Mm.
So it's exciting to see another
Yeah.
mountain and say, I don't know
There we
how,
go.
but I'll figure it out. Like,
Yeah.
I'll figure it out. I'll get
Yes.
a team of people because
Yeah.
that one looks bigger and scarier, but I'll get the tools and the resources, right, to make it happen. And I think there's excitement in that,
Mm.
you know? There's excitement in that and not being complacent. I don't think, I mean, I'm just guessing a little bit at this point. Anybody that's tuned into my podcast called Born Unbreakable enjoys complacency. You
Yes.
know, if you're here, it's because you are wanting to be the best version of yourself.
Yeah.
You, whether, even if it's a bad day, even if it was a hard day, and you are at that moment where you're giving up or you're going to sell something off or you're just like, I need to move on, there is more.
Yes.
There is more. You know, life is, it's this gift that we're given for the time that we're here to
Yes.
actually do something and make a difference. And I think that there's a little bit of that in all of us,
I'm
you
glad you
know?
said that. I'm glad I'm not alone. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's definitely a real thing for me, I think.
Oh, I love that. Okay, so what's next? Because you do have so much going on and you've
Mm.
had this dynamic journey, what is next for your business, or what are some of the things you've been thinking about?
Yeah. So, funnily enough, I know that in when you started this podcast, this episode, you said your word for the year was momentum. My word for the year is simplification, because
I
I'm a
love it.
classic
I love that
overthinker.
word.
Yeah, and I've thought I've overthought things through to be so it's so complicated that I just need to simplify, simplify, simplify. So, I'm definitely getting every day closer to that. So
Mm.
towards the end of last year, for example, I think I mentioned that we had gone into coaching for e-commerce business owners, and it got to the point. I think this was September last year, where I was like, it just something wasn't sitting right with me, quite right with me, and I didn't know what it was. I couldn't label it. I just couldn't put anything to it. And then, funnily enough, I was listening. I was at Funnel Hacking Live, and it was just an event put on by ClickFunnels, and Tony Robbins was a guest speaker, and he was talking about like how you can find fulfillment. And he said one word, and like everything clicked for me. I say everything, I don't mean it to be that dramatic. Some things clicked for me. And, because he said, one of the reasons why a lot of us don't find fulfillment is because we focus on things that are missing rather than what we have. And in that moment, and I don't know, this must have been my subconscious, was like, I think why things weren't quite sitting right with me was because I was constantly focusing on the things that were missing, especially when I was in the business of coaching e-commerce business owners, was because I was constantly thinking about what I need to know next and next. I was burning myself out with all of this. Whereas what I do have was I'm an introvert who I've still been able to. I've always been the introvert who never spoke up in class. I did a law degree where 10% of the marks was asking, and I immediately was like, okay, well, I'm not going to get full marks because that 10% is going to be gone. Even in corporate, even sitting in these rooms and stuff, like I was never the person who offered an opinion. I was always an introvert, and yet I was still able to find success in those areas, and that for me, like that makes me remarkable in some way. And so then I thought about everything that my clients and my audience are also struggling with being able to tell their stories and stuff, because a lot of us don't believe we have anything remarkable about us. Like a lot of us don't think, we just focus on what's missing, right? Well, then what we have, but
Oh,
we
yeah.
all have.
Well, you look
Yeah.
at someone else's story, right? And you go,
Yes,
well, but they had this and they were
exactly.
able to talk about that. So yeah,
Yeah.
I'm just a small fish in a big pond.
Yeah,
Right?
exactly. But that's so not true. Like all of it, like we go on a journey, we all have stories, we all have experiences that happen for a reason, and we should be, and that makes us individually remarkable. Like all of us are remarkable. And so that was when I had this epiphany that was like, this is where I want to be. This is what I want to be doing. I want to be helping entrepreneurs find their remarkability, take the crappiness out of content creation, out of lead gen, solve that for them so that they can essentially, to me, I coined this term, they can live their sloth boss life. They can be intelligently lazy because they have the systems, they have the tools, they have the processes, they have the mindset, they have the data in place that they can just kind of let their business kind of run, but in an intelligent way where they are staying on top of the things that matter. So that's kind of
The fact
what
that
I
you
want to
had a tagline that had the word sloth in it is awesome.
do.
That's awesome.
Yeah, so I'm super excited about this. I'm super excited about this year because we actually just launched Capsho end of last year, literally at the end of last year. So we're still early on in our journey, but I'm so excited. So right now we have the software that helps entrepreneurs, like, actually, you tell it your stories and it will spit out a bank of captions for you. So short form content. It's like magic. And then we have a program where we actually help CEOs in conjunction with that tool actually get really cost effective VA to do all of their content creation, all of their lead gen on social media for them, so that they're literally only spending 2 hours a week, if not less than that, on social media activities. Like,
That is brilliant,
that's what we're
Deirdre,
doing.
because okay, first of all, anybody who's just on social media regularly is spending a ridiculous hours.
Yeah.
If you're a business person of any kind, I promise that you're spending way more than 2 hours
Yes.
putting your posts, sharing your content, and then wanting to be consistent because maybe you
Yes.
have to do something every day. So it
Yes.
continues to build that feed, build that engagement, build that audience. Can you imagine not having to do that? How, like, if you got that time back in your day, what would you be doing with your time? You'd actually be able to talk to people,
Right.
do the
Make
work that
sales.
matters, make sales, make connections, make
Yeah.
relationships. That
Yeah.
is a huge lift off of people's shoulders. And the fact that you said that they can do it in a way that is cost effective is huge, because that's the
Yeah.
other thing is people are like, well, I don't want to offload this.
Yeah.
Certain things, it's going to cost too much. I don't know if it's worth it.
Yeah. Yeah.
This is
So
big.
I
What
went
a
down that
big year for you.
I know.
Whoa.
It's gonna be massive, but I'm so pumped. I'm so excited. This is this
Oh
is
my gosh.
definitely the mountain that I'm meant to be
I
on.
love this. Yeah. Well, and there's just so many people that I know need what you have. This is a huge problem.
Mm,
So yeah, I mean, I could think of the people I talk to every day that I would want to send to you that
imagine.
is like, I
Yeah,
spend too much time, too much time, too much time. I spend too much time. I need help. I'm just like,
amazing.
oh my gosh. Yeah, I mean, I mean, the point, and if we're again, and that's why I love this conversation, we're being very honest to say, we're doing this so we can be lazy, so we can do other things. You want to work smarter, not
Yes.
harder. I mean, you got
Yeah.
to work hard first, and then to
Yeah.
figure things out, because you don't know
Yeah.
what you don't know. But once you start knowing, then you can put things in place that's actually going to save you time, which is brilliant.
Totally.
But I definitely want to ask you some questions for people to get to know you a little bit better. So, the title of this podcast is called Born Unbreakable. What would you say makes you unbreakable for all the times that you've been down, you keep getting back up again? What is it for you that makes you do that?
Um, yeah, you know what? I've done a lot of work on kind of like my mindset and everything because, and what I do like to imagine, you talk about unbreakable, and when we break is when we're brittle, right? And we're hard to the point where something happens and we snap. And so I've had to do a lot of work because that was probably me, like in my younger years, and I imagine myself like a rubber band, like how can you stretch And things are going to happen where you're going to but it doesn't break you because you are, I guess, malleable in that way. So that's
Mhm.
we talk about breaking. That's kind of one of the things that actually really helps me is like, how can I actually stretch into this new phase, into this new whatever that's happening, in a way that is constructive and productive and all of those things. So yeah, I think that's one of the biggest tools, that I definitely lean on.
Yeah. Mindset is so important, right?
It's
Changes
everything.
everything.
It's
It's
everything. Yeah.
everything. Okay, what is one thing that is on your bucket list?
Oh, one thing on my bucket list, I would really like to at some point see the Northern Lights. I think that's one thing that, yeah, as an Aussie, we do a lot of traveling, but that's something that I have not yet been able to do and experience. So definitely, yeah, at some point that's going to happen.
That's awesome. Yeah, that's really fun. I love that. I love that. Okay, what is a self-limiting belief that you've had to overcome?
Oh, so many. Where do I start? You know what? Okay, so right now, the thing that I'm probably most struggling with is, my money mindset. It's all about my money mindset. For me, I grew up in an environment where money was the thing that was fought over. Money was the thing that was always the limitation, never the opportunity. And I think that I know for me and my family and my business to get to the next level, like that's the thing that I'm going to have to overcome. It's not easy, and I'm on that journey, but I know that that's going to be a big one from a mindset perspective.
Oh, it's huge. And I truly do believe that it's very relatable.
Mm,
Very relatable. When we think about money, and if somebody's listening and you've gone through a hard time, you've gone through a season that is difficult, sometimes it feels like there is limitations. It's hard to see the
yeah,
opportunity. It's hard to look, see the forest through the trees and see like, oh, just past, the horizon, there's all these things that are untapped.
yes,
But there is this grit that I believe that we have deep within, and if we search, and do some of that soul searching, we find it, and
yeah.
we can, money can flow to us, a lot quicker and a lot easier than I think we sometimes believe.
Mm.
Okay, what about superpowers? If you had to say a superpower that you have, what would you say that is?
Oh my gosh. A superpower, maybe like complete self-awareness. I don't even know if it's complete. I just I think that I'm not afraid to go to get to places inside of me. That sounds
Yeah.
weird, but you know what I mean. Because yeah, I know that fundamentally that is what is going to make us a better version of ourselves, is if we
Mhm.
can tap into that. So I think that's something that I've probably been doing decently well, at least very recently. So yeah, I'd say that.
Yeah. I can feel that about you, and I have to say that I wish everybody had that and
Mm.
wanted that. I think,
The
you
world be
know
a slightly better place.
well, it starts with that. I
Yeah,
do believe that in order for us to make the biggest impact, we have to be aware
yeah,
of all of it, the things that are our strengths, so we can go and give those gifts to the world, but also things that we struggle with, that we find challenge with, that we have to honestly seek, support, assistance with, that sometimes makes, part of what sometimes makes someone feel less than is when they need help, or they have to, get leverage. And I think, to me, it just makes you smart,
mm,
because where you need a compliment, right?
yeah,
Instead of trying to break your back to lean into a space that is a huge struggle for you, have people around you that love and enjoy and are vibrant in this area that it's just not your thing, and it's a win-win,
Mm,
and that's what's the beauty of a team, and that's the beauty of meeting great people, is being able to leverage one another's gifts and talents,
totally.
so oh, I love that
Thank you.
self-awareness. Yes, everybody working with self-awareness. Deirdre, we've talked about so much today, but if you had to give a last piece of advice to anybody listening, what would it be?
Um, so I guess something that's been on my mind lately, because I've just been getting into some of James Clear's stuff, is every action that we take is a vote for the person we want to become, and that's really stuck with me because it's so true, right? Like every action that stems from a decision or and a thought that we have, every action that we take is it takes us either closer to that person we want to become, or it takes us away from that person. So every time we do something, like, let's have a think about, is that a vote in the right direction? And so that's something that's stayed with me very recently.
I love that. And it's true. I mean, every day we ruminate on, there's probably some study that says how many thoughts, in
Mm,
24 hours run through our minds. There's so many. What I think the difference between what makes somebody achieve their goals and successful is action. Because
mm,
regardless of whether or not you have to close a bakery, or you have to decide that an idea wasn't worth pursuing, which means that you just need to go pursue the next one, you won't know
mhm.
if you don't try.
Exactly. Yeah.
So it takes something, and that's something, and just remember, if you're listening, that's something, it's not always a monumental thing. Sometimes we think, oh, okay, well, we have to have a $500,000 first before we can go and, buy this business or do something. It could be a phone call
Mm,
to somebody who is an amazing resource or mentor that can give you information you didn't have before. You
totally.
know,
Love
it
that.
could be getting a mentor. It could be, you know, getting feedback. A lot of the things that are actions don't have to cost something, but it does take your time. So you have to be willing to prioritize where you spend your time. And I think that's an important part of it, is as long as there's a value add to the
Yeah.
action, that you're taking. Okay, so how can people reach you? How can people follow the work you're doing and connect with you if they want to ask more or learn more?
Yeah, so I am obviously available on social media platforms. It's just my name, Deirdre Tshien, DeirdreTshien, or deirdretshien.com. Or I'm also holding a 4-day boot camp in a couple of weeks' time to actually talk through the strategies of a lot of what I spoke about around how do you actually get known, get credibility, get leads on social media while only spending 2 hours a week. I actually go through that in a 4-day boot camp. You can sign up for that at capshounlocked.com/scale.
What? I didn't know that gift was coming. That's really huge. I'm telling you, if you're listening, and this was like unsolicited moment, I didn't know that you're having this boot camp. But this is what I would say, after having done so many different things. I've done multi-level marketing companies. I've, do my own thing. I work for corporate America. We all do try different things. One of the biggest ways that you're going to get momentum in your year is by doing things early. What you do now sets the tone for everything. So it's the first quarter of the year still. And at first, because I've been done business for so long, I think in quarters, and I think about what I do and the decisions I make in Q1 are going to affect and have a downstream, impact on everything else. So if you invest the time to do things like this workshop that Deirdre is talking about, and invest in learning. so that you can gain the knowledge and do things better, faster, and so you can actually get more time back in your day. It's worth the investment. So definitely check that out, because that's going to be a really big value add for anybody that is trying to grow, their business. I learned so much today. I'm so grateful, Deirdre. This has been an
Oh,
amazing,
thank you. Thanks
amazing
for having
hour.
me on. Yeah, you've been amazing
Yeah.
to talk to.
I love it. Now I'm so inspired. I'm like, I have a whole to-do list too. I got to go to Australia, you know,
Adopt a
I
koala.
gotta I gotta adopt a koala. I have to, I do want to send more people to you, because of what you do, and to take advantage of things like your workshop, because we're kind of like you said, it's crazy. We're all in this together. A
Yeah.
lot of the problems that we face, we figure it out because we talk to each other and go
Yes.
like, well, what are you doing? Because this is crazy. This takes too long.
Yes.
I need like, I just want an extra hour of sleep. How can I get that? I know. Like,
Totally.
I just give me an hour so somebody else can do, something else on social media for me, because it's just too much.
Yeah.
So, yeah, but this is so awesome. I'm excited to follow the journey of everything that you just talked about is happening. You are brilliant. I think that your perseverance is unmatched. I think about the number of businesses that you've done and the fact that you're still going. I mean, if we had a conversation, um, which I would love to do regularly with you and to check in. I can only imagine, where things are going to
Mm.
be a
Yeah.
year
Love
and
that.
3 years from now.
Yeah, for sure. Love that.
Oh, awesome. Well, thank you so much for being here, and I look forward to the next time we're able to do this.
Yeah. Thank you so much for having me.
Awesome. Thanks, Deirdre.
Bye.
There has been an emphasis the last 2 episodes on this importance of marketing and storytelling. Met with Elizabeth Thorne and now Deirdre Tshien, and there is a trend that we're seeing in terms of making sure that our differentiation and our uniqueness is out there by doing personal storytelling for our own brand and our own business. So I love hearing different entrepreneurs and founders of companies pointing out themes that help us as consumers and entrepreneurs ourselves to do better in the marketplace. But the other key point that I want to make about Deirdre Tshien, who is amazing, is failing forward, and that perseverance. And what she pointed out, she talked a little bit about, maybe it's ego. I think it's more than that. When I asked her, what keeps you going despite the challenges and the failures? And she talked about fulfilling potential and knowing that there's more to do. I just want you to know, if you're listening, we have that in us. We all have that in us. There is this potential, and it grows and it grows. And we fulfill it by pursuing new things, leaning into our creativity, following our instincts, partnering with the right people, asking the right questions. So don't give up. We're all in the relentless pursuit of betterment, whether we want to admit that to ourselves or not, because I don't think that you would be listening to this podcast if that wasn't the case. So if you're leaving this episode, I want you to leave with knowing that you have limitless potential. And I want you to ask yourself today, what action do I need to take? Because she talked about those small actions. What action do I need to take in order to get me a step closer to that goal? What phone call do you need to make? What email do you need to send? What money do you need to put aside? It can be big, it can be small, but take a step, take an action. And that is why I always say, You are your only limit, and I truly do mean that. So take action today. That's how we get things done. That's how we have forward momentum. I'm so grateful that you're here. Make sure to hit the subscribe button if you haven't already. Share this episode with somebody who you think could benefit from it. And hey, give a review if you haven't already. It means a lot to me. It helps others be able to find this podcast faster. And I just sincerely appreciate you so much. So much. So be sure to tune in again next week for another inspiring episode of the Born Unbreakable podcast.